Let me tell you something that might sound crazy at first. I won the lottery 8 times. Yeah, you heard that right. 8, not once, not twice. 8. And no, I'm not talking about scratchers or some lucky numbers. I'm talking about the kind of lottery that most people don't even know they're holding a ticket for. The lottery of life, success, growth, and winning every single day. Now, before you go rolling your eyes or checking your wallet for a ticket stub, let me break it down for you. I didn't hit the jackpot because I was born lucky. I didn't have a rich uncle or some secret formula that fell into my lap. What I had were words. A simple set of words that I repeated over and over until they weren't just words anymore. They became my identity. They became my operating system, my mindset, my reality. Do you want to know the words? Simple. I don't negotiate with my goals. That's it. That's the sentence. And I said it so often with so much conviction that my brain stopped treating my goals like suggestions and started treating them like orders, like non-negotiable commands. Because most people lose the lottery of life, not because they don't have goals, but because they keep negotiating with them. They wake up tired and say, I'll start tomorrow. They hit a wall and say, maybe this isn't for me. They get rejected and suddenly think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. That's negotiating with your goals. That's letting fear, doubt, and comfort run your life. I didn't win by accident. I won because I stopped letting my feelings make decisions for me. I showed up when it hurt. I worked when it was boring. I stayed focused when everyone else got distracted. Because I was done negotiating with the version of me that was weak, tired, and full of excuses. And every time I did that, every time I pushed through the voice that said give up, and I answered back with I don't negotiate with my goals, that was a win. That was a lottery ticket, and I cashed it in. See, most people think the lottery is one big moment, one giant win, but the real lottery, it's daily. It's gritty. It's early mornings, late nights, hard conversations, and quiet discipline. It's how you speak to yourself when no one's watching. It's the standard you set when there's no spotlight. So yeah, I won 8 times, and you can too. Not because you're special, but because you're capable. Because if you can say the words and mean them, if you can look in the mirror and tell yourself, I don't negotiate with my goals, and then back it up with relentless action, that's your ticket. That's your moment. The only question is, are you ready to stop negotiating? Because once you stop negotiating with your goals, your entire identity shifts. You're no longer the person who tries, you're the person who does. The moment you commit to that standard, things begin to change. Not all at once, and definitely not without resistance, but they begin. And you start realizing that success isn't some magical thing that lands on the lucky few. It's earned. It's built brick by brick, day by day, with discipline, pain, and clarity. I'll tell you something else most people won't say out loud. Comfort is a killer. It'll rock you to sleep and make you think you're doing just fine. It'll whisper in your ear, you've done enough. But comfort doesn't build winners, it builds regret. It builds mediocrity. And mediocrity is what most people settle for, not because they can't achieve more, but because they keep letting their comfort zone run the show. Every single one of those 8 wins in my life, every time I cracked it to the next level, it came after a period of discomfort so intense that most people would have quit. That voice showed up every time, telling me to stop, slow down, play it safe. But I didn't just resist it, I replaced it. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't say the words once and expect the clouds to part and money to rain down from the sky. I said them in the dark. I said them broke. I said them while I was tired, embarrassed, out of shape, and overlooked. I said them when my back was against the wall and no one was cheering. And that's the key. It's not about saying it when it's easy. Anyone can talk big when the sun's out, but winners are built in the storm. Champions are forged in the struggle. You want to win? Then you better be ready to repeat your standard louder than your excuses. You know what separates the top 1% from everyone else? It's not intelligence, it's not talent, it's identity. High performers don't see their goals as optional. They don't treat effort as negotiable. I used to be like everyone else. I used to write down goals, get excited, make a plan, and then fall off. I'd say things like, this time will be different, and then 3 weeks later, I was back to my old habits. And you know why? Because I was still negotiating. I was still leaving the back door open for excuses to sneak in. I was still letting emotion vote when it came time to act. But the day I made that switch, the day I told myself, from now on, this is who I am, and backed it up with the words, I don't negotiate with my goals, everything shifted. It was like flipping a switch inside me. My goals stopped being wishes and became obligations. Not obligations in a heavy, burdensome way, but in an empowering, identity-driven way. The same way a lion doesn't need to be told to hunt, it's just what it does. And you know what's crazy? Once I started living that way, really living it, opportunities came, people showed up, doors opened, not because the universe magically aligned, but because I finally aligned me, my actions, my words, my mindset, my routines, my discipline. Everything got tight, everything got intentional. And that's when I started winning. Let's get real, winning is boring. That's the part they don't tell you. It's repetitive, it's monotonous, it's a grind. There's no fireworks most days, just showing up, doing the work, and repeating the standard. But guess what? That's where greatness lives, in the boring, in the reps, in the structure. It's not sexy, but it's effective. And I'll take effective over hype any day. That's why most people never get there. They chase motivation instead of building structure. They wait for energy instead of creating systems. And when life punches them in the mouth, and it always does, they fold because their foundation was emotional, not structural. But when you build your life around non-negotiable standards, when you live by a code and enforce it with every action, you don't need motivation, you become motivation. People started asking me, how did you stay consistent for so long? And I tell them the truth. I didn't. I had bad days. I had doubt, I had pain, but what I had more than anything else was a standard, a rule, a promise I made to myself that wasn't up for discussion. And every time I repeated those words, I don't negotiate with my goals, it wasn't just a reminder, it was reinforcement. It was steel being added to my spine. It was identity being hardened in fire. So when the workouts got hard, I didn't skip. When business got slow, I didn't flinch. When people doubted me, I didn't explain, I executed. I didn't let fear steer the ship. Here's what I know. Life will test you. It will test your resolve, your patience, your endurance, and your will. It will put obstacles in your way and demand to know how bad you really want it. And the only thing that will carry you through those tests is who you've decided to be. Not what you say you want, not how hyped you are after hearing a speech, but who you are at the core. When no one's watching, and it's just you and the hard choice. That's why these words matter. That's why they're more than a catchphrase. They're a command, a personal declaration that you're not going to play small anymore, that you're not going to entertain the voice that says maybe later, that you're done compromising your future to protect your comfort. You want to win? Say it out loud right now. I don't negotiate with my goals. And don't say it soft. Say it like it's already true, like your next level depends on it. Because it does. Rewire your mind to obey your standards, not your emotions. Stack those wins, even the tiny ones, especially the tiny ones, because momentum is everything. Small wins become habits, habits become identity, and identity becomes destiny. People look at winners like they're lucky, but if you peel back the curtain, you'll see a pattern. You'll see early mornings, late nights, brutal focus, and ruthless consistency. You'll see someone who's mastered the art of doing what they said they would do long after the mood they set it in has left them. That's the game. That's the blueprint. And the secret? Not really a secret. It's repetition. Or repetition of action, repetition of discipline, repetition of that one simple truth. I don't negotiate with my goals. And when you live that way long enough, something amazing happens. You start stacking wins so consistently that people can't ignore you anymore. You start getting results that seem unreal from the outside, but feel inevitable from the inside. And then one day, you look around and realize you've won again and again, 8 times, 8 massive leaps, 8 impossible wins that became inevitable the moment I made that decision. And the truth is, I'm not done. Because winning isn't a destination, it's a rhythm, a way of being. And the only thing that matters is whether or not you're willing to step into it. So don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until the stars align, because they won't. And they don't need to. All you need is to make the choice, say the words, mean them, live them, let them become your armor, let them become your fuel. Repeat after me and never forget it. I don't negotiate with my goals. Say it until it becomes the loudest voice in your mind. Say it until action becomes automatic. Say it until doubt loses its power and discipline takes over. Because once you decide, really decide that your goals are non-negotiable, that's the day you start winning. Not once, not twice, but over and over, just like I did. And here's what happens when you live like that for long enough. People start to notice. They start to wonder what changed. They'll say things like, "You're different now," or "You've been really locked in lately." They won't be able to explain it, but they'll feel it. That's the power of alignment. When your actions, your words, and your thoughts all move in the same direction, you become a force. And when that force is anchored in the mindset that your goals are not up for negotiation, you become unstoppable. You don't need the world's permission to operate at that level. You just need your own. But here's the trap. Most people want approval before they take action. They want support before they show consistency. They want applause before they've earned it. That's not how it works. You don't get validation up front. You get silence, you get skepticism, you get people wondering why you're trying so hard. And if you need the cheers to keep going, you're done before you even start. You've got to be okay grinding in obscurity, winning quietly, building your foundation without anyone noticing, because that's where the compound effect kicks in. That's where most people give up. And that's where the real growth happens, when you're in the gym and nobody's watching, when you're grinding in your business and nobody's buying, when you're working on yourself and nobody's clapping. That's when it matters the most. That's when you have to lean into the words, repeat them like a mantra, like a mission, like a war cry. I don't negotiate with my goals. Because if you really want to win, not just once, but repeatedly, you have to build emotional endurance. That's what this mindset gives you. The ability to show up and execute no matter what's going on around you, no matter who supports you or who leaves, no matter what the bank account says or how tired you feel. The emotional endurance is what allows you to outlast the people who had more talent, more connections, or a better starting point. And emotional endurance is built by choosing to honor your standards when it would be easier to break them. You want to know why I won 8 times? It wasn't luck, it was grit. It was refusing to let myself off the hook. It was waking up every day and making the same choice, over and over until it became my nature, until there was no other way to live. I didn't become successful by chasing the feeling of motivation. I became successful by becoming the kind of person who follows through regardless of motivation. You see, discipline isn't something you do, it's something you become. And it starts with language. Words are powerful. They shape your identity. They create your reality. That's why these 5 words work. They create clarity. They remove the gray area, because when you say, I don't negotiate with my goals, you take the decision-making process off the table. You don't waste time wondering whether you should show up. You just show up. That mental clarity is rare. Most people are walking around in a fog, second guessing, overthinking, asking other people what they should do next. But when you have clarity, you move differently. You stop reacting and start leading. You stop chasing and start building. And people feel it. They see it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you speak, in the way you work. And here's the truth that most people never want to admit. You can have excuses or you can have results, but you can't have both. You can't keep saying, I'll start tomorrow and expect to win today. You can't keep waiting for ideal conditions and expect extraordinary outcomes. Life doesn't reward intentions, it rewards execution. And execution lives at the intersection of clarity and commitment. So when I say I won the lottery 8 times, I mean I chose execution over excuses 8 different times in my life. I mean, I found a higher gear when most people would have hit the brakes. I mean, I refused to shrink back when things got uncomfortable. And every single time I repeated that sentence, I was reinforcing the standard, sharpening the edge, tightening the focus. And I'll be real with you, there were days when it didn't feel worth it, when progress was slow, when results weren't showing, when I questioned if I was even on the right path. But that's where belief kicks in. Not in some magical outcome, but in yourself, in your ability to keep going, to stay locked in, to outlast, to push through. You don't need everything figured out. You just need to keep showing up. The momentum doesn't come from big leaps. It comes from consistency. It comes from stacking day after day of doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it. You want to know what builds confidence? Doing hard things when it would be easier not to. Keeping your word to yourself. That's where real self-esteem comes from. That's how you earn self-respect. People ask me now, what's the secret? And I give the same answer every time. It's not a secret, it's a standard, a personal policy, a non-negotiable mindset. It's waking up every day and saying, this is who I am, this is what I do. And I don't need to feel like it, I just need to do it. If you want to break through in your life, whether it's financially, physically, spiritually, or emotionally, it's not going to happen because you stumbled into a lucky break. It's going to happen because you became the kind of person who makes it inevitable. And that happens through repetition, through discipline, through deciding right now that you're no longer entertaining the version of yourself that settles. You've got to let that version die, the version that procrastinates, the version that overthinks, the version that needs perfect conditions to make a move. That version has kept you small long enough. And the only way to kill it is to stop feeding it. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you feed that version. But every time you honor your word, you starve it. And you feed the stronger, more capable version of you. That version is inside you right now, waiting to be activated, waiting for you to stop negotiating and start committing. You don't need a new plan. You need a new pattern. You don't need more time. You need more intensity with the time you already have. You don't need more motivation. You need a code, a sentence, a declaration that you're done living below your potential. So I'll say it again, because repetition is how we rewire the mind. I don't negotiate with my goals. Say it. Own it, live it, let it shape the way you move, the way you think, the way you attack your day. Let it become the filter through which every decision is made. Let it be the voice that cuts through doubt, fear, and fatigue. And if you stick with it, if you repeat that mindset, not just with your mouth, but with your habits, you'll start winning. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will come. And when it does, it won't be a surprise. It'll be a confirmation of everything you already knew, that you were built for more, that you had it in you all along, that your words backed by action created the future you always dreamed of. So keep going, keep pushing, keep showing up, say the words until they become real, repeat the actions until they become who you are, and watch what happens when your identity and your execution finally align. That's how you win. Not just once, not just twice, but again and again. Because when you live in that alignment, where your thoughts, your words, and your actions are no longer in conflict, you don't just win once. You win habitually. You develop a rhythm, a current, a gravitational pull around you that attracts results, discipline, progress, and respect. People start to trust you, not because of your talk, but because of your track record. They don't see just your intentions. They see execution, and that's rare. But let's be clear, getting to that level requires a level of honesty most people run from. I'm not talking about honesty with the world. I'm talking about honesty with yourself. The kind of honesty that makes you uncomfortable. The kind that forces you to stop blaming, stop deflecting, stop pretending. You have to call yourself out. You have to admit where you've been negotiating with your future, cutting corners, making excuses, watering down your potential, just to avoid the temporary discomfort of discipline. And that's the truth I had to face. There were seasons of my life where I was lying to myself every day, saying I wanted more while living like I was okay with less, talking big but acting small, waiting for inspiration while ignoring responsibility. I wanted the results of winners without the standards of winners. And every time I fell short, I acted surprised. But the only thing surprising was how long I kept pretending that effort and excellence were optional. It wasn't until I made those words my foundation, I don't negotiate with my goals, that I really saw who I could become. Not just what I could achieve, but who I could be. Because your goals aren't just about trophies or income or milestones. They're about transformation. They're about the person you become by refusing to settle. And once you get a taste of that version of yourself, the one who shows up regardless, the one who follows through every time, you can't go back. Not without feeling that deep internal disappointment that reminds you you're playing below your potential. That's the real cost of negotiating. It's not the missed opportunity or the lost time. It's the damage to your identity. Every time you say, I'll do it later, or I'll start tomorrow, or just this once, you chip away at the version of you that could have led the way. And enough of those moments, you start believing your own compromise. You start thinking, maybe you're not meant for more, but you are. You always were, you just forgot because you stopped reinforcing the truth. This isn't about being perfect. Perfection's a myth. This is about being relentless. It's about being unshakable in your commitment, even when life punches back. About holding the line when others break. About showing up on the days when your motivation is zero, but your mission is loud. Because those are the days that count. Anyone can act inspired on day one, But day 101, when you're tired, doubting, overwhelmed, and still choosing discipline, that's where winners are made. And I'll be real with you again. This mindset will cost you. It'll cost you comfort. It'll cost you laziness. It'll cost you some relationships. People will say you've changed, and they'll be right. Because when you refuse to negotiate with your goals, you automatically start distancing yourself from those who still are. You stop tolerating mediocrity. You stop justifying delay. You start choosing your future over your feelings. And not everyone's going to understand that. But you didn't come here to be understood. You came here to win. You came here to lead. You came here to build something meaningful. And that doesn't happen by staying relatable. It happens by being intentional. You want to live like the 1%, then you have to think like the 1%. And they don't entertain distraction. They don't indulge weakness. They live with intention. They move with purpose, and they talk to themselves like champions. That internal dialogue matters more than anything. You can have the best mentors, the best books, the best resources, but if the voice in your head is soft, scared, and full of compromise, it won't matter. You'll sabotage your progress before it starts. You'll retreat when you should have advanced. You'll coast when you should have climbed. That's why you need to be militant with your inner narrative. Train it, program it, feed it with repetition until it becomes your default operating system. And that's what I did. Day after day, I repeated the words. I don't negotiate with my goals. I said them out loud. I wrote them down. I said them in my head during workouts, during setbacks, during wins, during losses. It became a drumbeat in my mind. And eventually, it became automatic. I didn't have to think about whether to fall through. It was just who I was. My identity caught up with my standard. That's when everything changed. Not because life got easier, but because I got stronger. I wasn't rattled by stress. I wasn't distracted by failure. I wasn't seduced by temporary pleasures. I was locked in. And that version is loud. I know it wants the quick fix. It wants the dopamine hit. It wants the comfort of quitting without the guilt. But you have to silence it. You have to remind it who's in charge. And you do that by repeating your standard, not your story. Your story might be full of pain, full of setbacks, full of failure, but your standard is clean, pure, direct. It cuts through all of that. That's why it works. That's why it wins. And the more you live by it, the more you realize you don't need external validation. You stop needing applause. You stop craving attention because your satisfaction comes from knowing you honored the contract you made with yourself. That's a deeper kind of fulfillment, one that doesn't fade when the lights go off, one that carries you through the dark, through the grind, through the long nights when no one sees what you're doing. And yes, it's going to hurt sometimes. Growth always does. You'll lose people. You'll face resistance. You'll battle burnout, fear, fatigue. But through all of that, you'll find yourself. You'll find the version of you who's capable of more than you ever imagined. You'll start seeing every challenge as a test, not of your talent, but of your commitment. You'll stop asking, can I do this? And start asking, how far can I go? That's when life gets exciting. When you're no longer trying to survive, but to dominate. When your goals aren't burdens, they're privileges. You get to wake up and chase them. You get to suffer for something meaningful. You get to build something most people will never understand. And it all starts with a sentence, a standard, a way of life. I don't negotiate with my goals. That sentence pulled me through hell. It pulled me through doubt, broke seasons, rejection, and reinvention. And every time I spoke it, I wasn't just pushing forward. I was proving to myself that I was worthy of the next level, that I had the grit, the fire, and the patience to keep showing up. And now, after 8 wins, 8 breakthroughs, 8 impossible victories turned real, I can say this with certainty. It was never about luck. It was never about timing. It was about identity. It was about commitment. It was about repeating the words until they became a lifestyle. So you want to win? Stop playing both sides. Stop wanting it and negotiating with it. Stop chasing goals with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. Decide, commit, lock in, and repeat the words until you believe them more than you believe your fear, your doubt, or your excuses. I don't negotiate with my goals. Say it again, louder this time. Mean it. Live it. Let it become who you are. Because when that switch flips, when that sentence becomes more than words, everything changes.